We have peace in the Middle East. No, we don't. I know I'm supposed to be celebrating the Nobel Peace Prize. And again, like I said in the opening, I give Donald Trump all the credit in the world, but I don't believe any of this at all. I think this ceasefire is going to last about as long as it takes to make a bowl of mac and cheese. Joining me now, my friend Josh Hammer, author of the book Israel and Civilization. All right, Josh, you're the expert on the region much more so than I am. Is this peace?
Well, Jesse, first of all, I'm not sure that I'm the expert. You, my friend, are the one who actually served our country honorably. I did not have that honor, so I'm not sure that I can match that. But I share your skepticism for what it's worth. I am skeptical. I am suspicious. I do think that Donald Trump and the administration deserve a lot of credit for this. I think that Benjamin Netanyahu deserves a lot of credit as well, actually. He has a very perilous balancing act to do between his coalition, between the Israeli people who want the hostages home. How do you balance these competing interests of the hostages with Hamas? So a lot of people deserve a lot of credit. There's only one glaring problem here, which is that we're talking about Hamas. I mean, I think a lot of people have forgotten here. You're talking about a 7th century aspiring Sharia supremacist Islamist death cult. You're talking about a group of people that don't understand the Western conception of a ceasefire. There's actually a word in Arabic called hudna, and hudna is how the Arab world thinks of a ceasefire. The problem, Jesse, is that a hudna is not a ceasefire. A ceasefire is like an actual cessation of hostilities there. A hudna in the Arabic language and in Islamic Arab culture more generally, a hudna is a temporary pause that allows one side to simply regroup for the inevitable resumption of armed hostilities. So to me, that seems likely as to what is going to happen here. I think it's only a matter of time before Hamas brazenly violates this deal. I would like to be wrong here. Now, the deal is not perfect. There are some things in it that I object to, but my mentality as an American, Jesse, is basically this. If Israel is happy with it, then there's very little room to object to it from an American perspective. The American interest in this war is pretty simple. We want the hostages to be released. We definitely want Hamas to be out of power in Gaza. If Israel is satisfied that this deal does that, then I think that the United States should be satisfied as well. I just don't think that it's actually going to happen is the problem.
Okay, Josh, why don't you break it down for us in a little bit more detail beyond the headlines. What is in the deal? Because again, I'm even skeptical about Hamas being out of power in Gaza. That just doesn't sound like something that's going to happen to me. So what's in the deal?
Yeah, and again, you're totally right to be skeptical. So the deal calls for the immediate release of all of the hostages in Gaza, living and deceased. That is supposed to happen this weekend, as soon as this Sunday or Monday. Roughly 20, maybe 22, 23 at the most living hostages in Gaza. God willing, they will finally be out of their 2 years now in horrific jihadist captivity this weekend. So that would be a huge victory if that happens. Now, in exchange for that, here's kind of the fine print that a lot of people are not talking about. In exchange for that, Israel's releasing some of the most hardened jihadists known to man, and that number could be as high as potentially 2,000 thugs. Now, the Prime Minister's office has said that some of the literal worst of the worst, including an infamous jihadist named Marwan Barghouti. By the way, Jesse, just to give you an example as to how sick the moral rot is in Palestinian Arab society, there was a reputable poll that was taken just a few weeks after October 7th as to who the Palestinian Arabs in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, aka the West Bank, would most want to be their prime minister. They named a guy more than anyone else named Marwan Barghouti, whose claim to fame is that he is serving multiple life sentences for murdering a bunch of innocent people in Israel. So the Prime Minister's office has said that Barghouti's not getting out, but a lot of people are going to get out there. And, frankly, we can go back to the 2011 Gilad Shalit prisoner swap, where Israel exchanged over 1,000 jihadis just to get one soldier back who was taken capture in Gaza. One of the jihadis who Israel traded back then in 2011 was an obscure jihadist by the name of Yahya Sinwar, who fast forward 12 years became the mastermind of October 7th. So we've been down this road before. It does not always work out in Israel's favor, does not always work out in the United States' favor. But to me, the even more pressing concern, which again you alluded to, is Hamas just going to disarm? Are they going to lay down their guns there? And more to the point, who's going to enforce that? Like literally, who is actually going to enforce that Hamas has given up all of their RPGs and their weaponry and their Humvees and that there? It seems a very, very, very difficult thing to try to enforce. And the final thing I'll say is that even if you cross that threshold, even if we accept Israel's terms, America's terms, whoever's actually enforcing it, even if we accept that they've actually laid down their arms, then who actually is going to govern next? I mean, let's even assume that Hamas is actually out of power. They actually accept safe passage out of Gaza to the Sinai Desert, whatever, which I'm kind of skeptical of that, to be honest with you. But let's say they do that. If the Palestinian Authority, if Mahmoud Abbas from Ramallah in the West Bank comes down to govern Gaza, that's pretty much a distinction without much of a difference. They are slightly less evil. They're still pretty freaking evil. Mahmoud Abbas himself literally wrote his PhD dissertation at his old Soviet university in Moscow on Holocaust denial. So this is not exactly a loving, friendly group of people. These are the so-called moderates that Tony Blinken and the whole Biden administration were falling head over heels for. So, I mean, are they going to be in charge in Gaza? I mean, color me skeptical of that too. So there is a path towards this working out, but it's a very narrow path, and a lot of things that are low to mid probability items have to all simultaneously click at once, basically.
I have to ask, Josh, and I know the answer to this question is not wonderful, but okay, the hostages being released is the goal. We want these people out of captivity. How many of these people do we believe are still alive?
Roughly 20 is the estimate. We think 25 at the absolute most, 22, 23, so somewhere between 20 and 25. Now, there's going to be more than that when it comes to dead hostages who have not been released, somewhere between 45 and 50. 48 is the number that I've seen tossed around there. But dead or alive, I mean, Jesse, that's what a first world country does, right? As you go above and beyond to try to bring home your captives, your soldiers, your civilians, and it's just a horrific situation there. But look, I was in Israel, Jesse, most recently in June, and I was pretty struck going throughout the country of how frequent the hostage posters are. They're everywhere. They're not just in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. They're on the sides of the highways, on the overpass there, on the sidewalk. They're literally everywhere. This is a country that is dying to get their hostages home. And I don't blame them. As an American, my first and foremost goal is to see Hamas, which is a U.S. State Department recognized foreign terrorist organization, to see them obliterated. Personally, that's what I care about more than anything else. But I can just tell you from having been in Israel and seen the Israeli perspective there, they obviously care about defeating Hamas too. But to them, the hostage situation is just so overwhelmingly personal there that I think that they will just be really happy to get whoever they can get home safely ASAP.
All right, let's get out of that whole mess and focus on our own messes right now, like conversion therapy. What's going on at the Supreme Court, and what is this case all about, Josh?
Jesse, you are a true professional, my friend, when it comes to these transitions. So this is a case. This is a case of the Supreme Court called Salazar. So it's a case out of the state of Colorado. By the way, why do all these fun LGBTQ culture war cases come out of Colorado? I mean, the Jack Phillips masterpiece cake shop case was out of suburban Denver, Colorado there. The 303 creative case, that was a free speech case from just 2 or 3 terms ago involving a religious Christian marriage website designer. That was a case out of Colorado. So I'm not sure what's in the water in Colorado besides just a bunch of marijuana, I guess, but it ain't good, whatever is there, because we get a lot of these ridiculous cases. So Colorado has banned so-called conversion therapy. Now, the very phraseology, the very term conversion therapy is kind of a left-wing misnomer because it implies that you're taking the kids or teenagers, whoever they are, to a therapist, and you're going to induce them with some sort of drugs, or you're going to try to read them the riot act there. In reality, when Colorado legislates, when other liberal states legislate about conversion therapy, they're actually really just talking about parents talking to their children, or parents bringing in an intermediary to talk to their children. This is core free speech stuff. This is core free speech, core parental rights stuff. If the free speech clause of the First Amendment means one thing and one thing only, it means political speech. Political speech is the sine qua non, the core of the free speech clause. If it means anything else, it means that the parents of children have a right to talk to their parents in whatever manner they choose, period, full stop, end of story, without the government sticking its dirty, grubby thumbs and its nose in those parents' business there. I'm pretty optimistic, Jesse, given the recent free speech clause jurisprudence, given the religious liberty jurisprudence. I think this is going to be a winning case, actually. I think the Colorado law will be overturned probably pretty soon, actually.
All right, Josh, finally, Chief Justice John Roberts is worried about, and I quote, a potential disaster in some case involving late arriving mail-in ballots. What's the disaster? What?
Well, Jesse, this has been an ongoing issue since the 2020 election, especially out of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania when it comes to how do we count ballots, when it comes to, is it the postmark date that has to be out before the election date? Is it after the election date there? I think the key point here from a constitutional perspective is that when it comes to essentially all procedures for a federal election, it's up to the states. The states are the ones who have overwhelming authority to control elections in America. This is actually the entire basis of the conservative objection to the Joe Biden era attempts to federalize a ban on voter ID or various other attempts, the John Lewis Act, to basically federalize more election law, because election law, as part of our constitutional design, is really kind of a core state-level police power issue. There are exceptions. There's the 15th Amendment, which says that you have a right to vote regardless of what your race is. That was a Reconstruction post-Civil War amendment. There's the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There's a couple other interesting statutes as well. But this is really kind of a core federalism question there. Fortunately, again, for Roberts and the court's right of center majority, it's not a right-wing majority, but it's a right of center majority there. Federalism is another issue where this court has generally been sound. So I'm pretty optimistic about this case as well.
Josh, thank you, my brother. Come back soon. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.